The dinner rush had slowed, but the clatter of plates still echoed through the dimly lit diner. Nathan Cole, a tall, sharply dressed man who carried the quiet authority of someone used to making big decisions, stirred his coffee without drinking it. His eyes caught a flicker of movement by the kitchen door, a waitress slipping a few pieces of leftover bread into a worn canvas bag. Her hands moved fast, like she'd done this before, but her face was all guilt and desperation. She glanced around, not seeing him watching. What he didn't expect, what stopped him from looking away, was the little boy's jacket folded neatly inside the bag, as if she was saving the bread for someone else before herself. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. Nathan didn't move right away. He just sat there, his fingers still curled around the mug, watching her push through the swinging door into the staff hallway. The other waitresses were laughing near the counter, counting tips and talking about weekend plans. But she wasn't part of it. A minute later, she came back out with her head down, a few strands of hair falling loose from her messy ponytail. She passed his booth without looking up, the tired smile she gave a family at the corner table looking like it cost her more than it was worth. When the family left, she leaned on the table for a second, eyes closing, before she wiped it down. Nathan noticed her knuckles, red, dry, cracked like she'd been working in dishwater for hours. She moved quickly toward the back again, clutching her bag tighter this time. Something about the way she carried herself. It wasn't just exhaustion. It was the way her shoulders hunched, like she was bracing for the next hit life would throw at her. Nathan didn't plan to get involved. He had a business meeting in an hour and 100 other things on his mind. But when she passed by again, he stood. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low but firm. She stopped, startled, glancing up at him with guarded hazel eyes. "Yes, sir?" "You forgot something." He held out a paper napkin, but inside was a folded $100 bill. Her eyes widened, flicking from his face to the napkin, then back again. I can't take this." "It's not for you," Nathan said. "It's for whoever that bread was for." Her breath caught, and for a moment, she looked like she might bolt. Instead, she swallowed hard and said quietly, "It's for my son. He's 7. He likes the bread here because it doesn't make his stomach hurt." Nathan felt a strange twist in his chest. He slid the napkin closer. "Then take it. And don't worry. No one saw but me." She hesitated, then took it with trembling fingers, muttering a soft, "Thank you," before disappearing into the back. Nathan should have left. He should have walked out and never thought about her again. But he didn't. Nathan sat back down, but the coffee in front of him went cold. He didn't even notice when the server behind the counter called out for last orders. All he could think about was that look in her eyes. Half pride, half desperation. By the time she reappeared in her worn jacket, the diner was nearly empty. She kept her head down as she clocked out, slung the canvas bag over her shoulder, and slipped outside into the chilly night. Nathan tossed a few bills on the table, left his untouched coffee, and followed. She didn't head toward the main street or the bus stop. Instead, she took a narrow side road lit by a single flickering street lamp, her steps quick like she was racing the cold. Nathan kept his distance, his polished shoes crunching softly over the cracked sidewalk. A few blocks later, she turned down an alley lined with dumpsters and rusted fire escapes. He slowed, wondering if she knew she was being followed. But she didn't look back, just knelt beside a thin, shivering boy, bundled in an oversized hoodie. Nathan's breath caught. The boy's cheeks were hollow, his lips pale, but the smile he gave her as she handed him the bread was enough to punch a hole straight through Nathan's chest. "You saved it for me?" the boy whispered. "Of course," she said softly, brushing the hair from his forehead. "And look, there's butter this time." Nathan leaned against the brick wall, the weight of the scene pressing into him. He'd made deals worth millions without blinking. But this felt like something else entirely. The boy devoured the bread like it was the first thing he'd eaten all day. She watched him, her own stomach growling loud enough for Nathan to hear from where he stood. That was when the boy looked up and said, "Mom, you should eat too." "I'm not hungry," she lied. Nathan's jaw tightened. Without thinking, he stepped forward, the sound of his shoes on the pavement making her head snap up. Her eyes widened. "What are you? You both look like you could use a hot meal," he said quietly. "Come with me." She didn't move. Her body stiffened, one hand instinctively pulling the boy closer. "I'm not asking for anything," Nathan said, keeping his voice even. "Just dinner, a place that's still open. You can say no." Her eyes searched his face like she was trying to read a hidden agenda. "Why?" Nathan hesitated, then shrugged. "Because no kid should be eating cold bread in an alley when there's hot food a block away." The boy glanced up at her, hopeful but quiet. She sighed, a sound that carried both defeat and caution. "Fine, but we don't owe you anything." Nathan didn't answer, just nodded toward the street. They walked in silence to a small 24-hour diner on the corner. The warmth inside hit them immediately, the scent of grilled burgers and coffee wrapping around them like a blanket. At the store, Boy's eyes darted to the chalkboard menu, and Nathan caught the flicker of excitement before he tried to hide it. "Order anything you want," Nathan told him. The boy looked at his mom first. She shook her head slightly, but Nathan leaned in. "It's okay." He ordered a cheeseburger, fries, and a milkshake. She ordered nothing. Nathan frowned. "You're not eating?" "I'm fine," she said quickly. He didn't buy it. "Two of the same for her," he told the waitress, ignoring her glare. The food came fast, and the boy's first bite was almost reverent. Nathan noticed the way she kept glancing at her son, making sure he was eating enough before touching her own plate. Halfway through, Nathan asked, "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Emily, and this is Jack." "I'm Nathan," he said. Emily nodded but didn't ask anything back. She was still guarded, her walls firmly in place. When the plates were empty, Nathan reached for his wallet. "Where do you two live? I can give you a ride." Emily's fork clinked against her plate. "We're fine." But the boy blurted, "We live in the shelter on Main Street." Her face flushed, her jaw tightening, but she didn't correct him. Nathan's grip on his wallet tightened. This was not going to be the last time he saw them. The shelter smelled faintly of disinfectant and damp laundry. Nathan stood in the doorway the next morning, his black overcoat stark against the peeling beige walls. A few heads turned, men slumped in worn chairs, a couple of kids chasing each other between the bunks. But he was looking for only one face. Emily appeared from the far end of the hall, her hair still damp from a hurried shower. Jack's small hand clutched in hers. The moment she spotted him, her steps slowed. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice low but sharp. Nathan didn't flinch. "I wanted to check on you both." "We're fine," she said quickly, glancing at the other residents who were now openly watching. "You shouldn't be here." Jack, however, lit up. "Nathan, did you come to see us?" Nathan smiled at the boy. "I did, and I brought something." He reached into his coat and pulled out a paper bag from the bakery down the street. The smell of fresh cinnamon rolls filled the air instantly. Emily's jaw tightened. "You can't just—" "It's breakfast," Nathan interrupted. "No strings." He handed the bag to Jack, who grinned so wide it nearly undid Nathan. Still, Emily crossed her arms. People don't show up at shelters for no reason. Nathan studied her for a moment, reading the unspoken fear in her eyes. "Then maybe you've only met the wrong kind of people." She didn't respond, but she didn't walk away either. Nathan took a step closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I'm looking for someone to help me at my office. Flexible hours, decent pay, and you'd still have time with your son." Emily blinked, caught off guard. "Why me?" "Because you work hard," Nathan said simply. "And I think you deserve better than this." For a moment, her defenses wavered. He saw it in the way her fingers loosened on her son's hand. But then she straightened. "I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking." Nathan gave her a small nod before heading for the door. Behind him, he heard Jack whisper, "Mom, maybe he's one of the good ones." Emily showed up at Nathan's office 3 days later. She had Jack with her, bundled in his hoodie, sitting in the lobby with a small coloring book Nathan's receptionist had dug out of a drawer. Emily's clothes were clean but threadbare. A washed-out navy sweater and black slacks that had seen better years. She stood just inside the doorway to his private office, her hands clasped tightly like she wasn't sure whether to step forward or run. Nathan didn't make her wait. "I'm glad you came," he said, setting aside a folder. "Sit." She perched on the edge of the chair opposite his desk. "This is temporary," she said quickly. "I still don't know what you want from me." "I told you," Nathan replied evenly. "Help in the office. You answer calls, keep the schedule straight, and maybe deal with clients when I'm tied up. You'll be paid weekly, no questions asked about your personal life." That last part made her hesitate. No one just hands people jobs. Nathan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "Emily, I've seen you work. You juggle a dozen tables, keep orders straight, deal with rude customers without losing your temper. You're organized. That's worth something to me." Her lips pressed into a thin line, like she was trying to decide if that was the truth or just a good sales pitch. Finally, she nodded once. "Fine. I'll try it." Nathan didn't smile, but something in his expression softened. "Good. You start today." By lunchtime, Emily had already answered 15 calls, scheduled 4 meetings, and dealt with a pushy supplier without flinching. Nathan watched her from his office doorway as she hung up the phone and scribbled something on a notepad. She was good, really good. But he also noticed how her eyes darted toward the lobby every few minutes, checking on Jack like she half expected him to vanish. When the clock hit noon, Nathan brought out takeout from a nearby deli. "Eat," he said, setting a sandwich in front of her. "I brought something for us," Emily said, patting her worn canvas bag. "I know," Nathan replied, "but this has more than bread in it." Jack beamed when Nathan handed him a paper cup of hot soup. "Thanks." Emily shot Nathan a look that was half suspicion, half reluctant gratitude. "You don't have to feed us." "Maybe I want to," he said simply. 2 hours later, the mood shifted. Nathan had stepped out for a meeting, leaving Emily at the desk. A man in a gray suit walked in, his cologne sharp and expensive. He glanced around before leaning on the counter. "You're new?" he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Where's Nathan?" "He's in a meeting. Can I take a message?" Emily asked. The man's smile widened. "You can tell him Alan Foster stopped by, and tell him He can't hide from this forever. Emily stiffened. Is that a threat? Just business, Alan said casually, but his gaze flicked toward Jack in the lobby. Cute kid. Before Emily could respond, Nathan's voice came from behind. Leave. Alan turned slowly, his smirk deepening. We'll talk soon. Then he walked out, like he owned the place. Nathan's jaw was tight as he shut the door. What did he say to you? Emily's hands were trembling. Nothing I couldn't handle. But who was that? Someone who thinks he can push me around, Nathan said. You don't have to worry about him. Emily crossed her arms. If he's dangerous, I do have to worry, especially if my son's here. Nathan hesitated, then said, I'll make sure Jack's safe. Always. She studied him for a long moment, her guard still up. I don't know what you're involved in, Nathan, but if this puts my son in danger, we're gone. Nathan met her gaze steadily. It won't, I promise. But Emily had the uneasy feeling that whatever she'd just stepped into was bigger and riskier than she could have imagined.